Today I'd like to speak of the World Center of Classical Guitar Activity, Buenos Aires, its guitars and its owners. Miguel Llobet, in 1953, his daughter donated his guitar collection to the Museo de Música in Barcelona. He did several concert tours from 1910 and 1929 in Barcelona. People got to see his 1859 Taurus on stage in Salon La Argentina in August of 1910. At that time he was using great dynamics, pianissimos, repeats, fortes, crescendos, decrescendos, etc. But his collection of guitars consisted of a 1783 Joseph Benedit guitar made in Cadiz, 1797 Juan Pages guitar made in Cadiz, 1824 Jose Recio made in Cadiz, 1841 Francisco Pages made in Havana, Cuba, 1859 Taurus made in Sevilla. That's the one that he took on tour. 1862 Taurus made in Sevilla. Pedro Pages, 19th century made in Cadiz. Pablo Hierro, very fancy rosette, etc. Tortosa, Catalonia, 19th century. An Altamira, very fancy ladder braced instrument made in Barcelona. Later, Agustin Altamira started using fan bracing. I've sold one that had 3 fan braces. I have another one in stock currently that has 5 fan braces and 4 fan braces interspersed at the bottom near the end block in between those 5 fan braces. Very similar to a guitar by Francisco Pages that is also shown on the Museo de Música website. He owned a circa 1850 Francisco España. Francisco España was on the same street at one point in time as Altamira. Both of those guys hired French luthiers from Mercor. España hired Mr. Therese, and also Altamira hired, what's his name? Mayor. And he had Miguel owned a Pedro Perez circa 1900. I have one in stock that has the same manuscript label as the one handwritten as the one that Miguel owned. A couple years later, 1 or 2 years later, Pedro Perez had printed labels. Some of those have been available and sold in the last few years. The 12th guitar on the list is a Ribot y Alcañiz guitar, 19th century. I have a Jaime Ribot guitar in stock if you're interested. You can take a look at it. It's got a great sound. Also, number 13 on the list is 1920 Jaime Ribot and V. Storch Massaguea, made in Barcelona. Another one as well by those 2 guys. Unlabeled French 19th century guitar, unlabeled Barcelona guitar, circa 1900. One from Munich by Alfred Schmid, made in 1921, and a 1930 American Conservatory guitar made in Chicago, probably by Washburn. Domingo Prat was the first guy to go to Argentina with a Enrique Garcia guitar. I did a video about that the other day. I'm going to talk about his guitar collection, pretty extensive. In August of 1946, he died in November of 1944. The Antigua Casa Nunez shop founded in 1870 by Francisco Nunez, who was a student of Salvador Ramirez. The Antigua Casa Nunez shop had an exposition and sale of the collection of guitars by Domingo Prat. An 1899 Garcia, another Garcia 1902, number 22, and a third guitar, number 264 from 1922, made just months before Enrique passed away on the 31st of October, 1922. He had a 1926 Simplicio number 124. I believe that was the 3/4 size guitar that he had made for his daughter. He had another 1930, or the 1930 Simplicio could have been the 3/4 size that was made for Blanca Prat. She used it in early recitals. That was number 283, the 1930. He owned two 1926 San Feliu guitars. He did advertisements for Romero and Fernandez for, Casa America for San Feliu guitars. My colleague Richard Bernet said, "Do you notice how he's not holding a San Feliu guitar in the photo of the ad?" Domingo also owned a 1859 Taurus, and he owned a 9-string Lorca guitar owned by Don Juan Parga. Parga taught at the Conservatory of Malaga, published sheet music in the early 1890s, showing the guitar on the cover of the sheet music. Chanterelle Publications has had an anthology of those works available for the last 25 years. He had a small Pages guitar, a small S. Silvestre guitar, and a small 1848 Manuel Gutierrez made in Sevilla. Francisco Tarraga owned at least two Enrique Garcia guitars. Number 74, fabricated in 1906. This was just 7 guitars before the one that we should have in stock next Thursday on the 3rd of February. He also owned number 43 that was made in 1904, and that particular guitar made its way to Argentina and became in the possession of teacher, concert artist, and recording artist Adolfo V. Luna in 1924. There are photos of that particular guitar in his hands in the Revista Ilustrada Musica Targa magazine. I have a complete collection of that, very rare. Google it, try to buy it, pretty impossible stuff. And he recorded with that Enrique Garcia guitar from 1904 for Discos Nacional Odeon. And those records were produced by Max Glucksman, who also produced recordings of Agustin Barrios from 1921 and 1929. Another guitar made by Garcia in 1918 belonged to Virgilio Manasco. He was a student of both Antonio Sinopoli and Domingo Prat. Prat mentions that Manasco owned this guitar in his Diccionario de Guitarristas y Guitarreros, published in 1934. It's listed on page 187.